Hello everybody and welcome to another Jumputi Heroes predictions video. My name is Scarface King and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming One Piece Worst Generation Feature Festival. Now these predictions are coming to you a little bit late as we have already had an announcement of a character coming out, but it was supposed to go up yesterday and then there was a certain big event on yesterday that I happened to be watching and I sort of ran out of time to get the video up, so it's going up today. I did drop my predictions on Discord, so if you're in the Jumputi Heroes Discord, you will have seen those. We got the first prediction right, lads. We got the first prediction right. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. Bit of a roll that we're on here, though. A bit of a roll because we did get a prediction right from the ensemble, which historically I would say I have found to be by far the hardest thing to predict is new units in ensembles, and we managed to get our Tanjiro from the final selection prediction correct. Although I think all we've really learned from that is that you're pretty safe guessing Naruto and Kimetsu no Yaiba characters for ensembles because they almost always show up. I don't think I ever would have guessed KCM1 Naruto. Even if I thought there was going to be a Naruto character, I wouldn't have guessed that. But for Tanjiro, I feel like that was a very, very solid guess from me. But as I said in that original video, if I can visualize them fitting that Tanjiro into this themed event, if I can visualize them doing that, that probably means that they were already trying to find a way to do that. Because if they can fit Tanjiro into this event, they will. Because Kimetsu no Yaiba is equal to money. And I know you'd say, well, Tanjiro is like a free unit. How does that equal money? It's all about tempting people to come and play. It's not got anything to do with the gacha. The more people you get hooked into the game with these Kimetsu no Yaiba units, they'll summon on something. And later on, there'll be Tanjiro and Nezuko and Tanjiro by himself and Rengoku and all these banners coming back. And they will have the opportunity to summon there. So listen, it still works, but today we're not talking about that. Today we're talking about the next event, the Worst Generation Feature Festival. For those unfamiliar, I will talk about it briefly for people that haven't watched One Piece. The Worst Generation, well, there's two phrases I'll be talking about: Worst Generation and Supernova. Supernovas are the rookies in One Piece, the rookie pirates who have an bounty in excess of 100 million berry. So there's a few in this group that are not counted as part of the Worst Generation. Some of them aren't that important to the story, but a couple that are quite important to the story and are already in the game are Bartolomeo and Cavendish. They are not going to be showing up in this feature festival, but we already have them in game, so it doesn't matter. But they're not part of the Worst Generation because they came a bit later. The Worst Generation is a group of super rookies plus one sort of veteran pirate. All of them have these large bounties, but the reason they're called the Worst Generation is because they all came through at once. It was a single generation of pirates. There are tons of them, all with super high bounties. They're all causing problems for the Marines, and they all sort of try to enter a new world at the same time. So it's not good. It's not good. It's quite troublesome for everybody. And yeah, this group, like I said, 11 rookies, 11 supernovas, super rookies, and one sort of veteran pirate, that being Blackbeard, who we already have in game, could play a role in this event. He did play a role in this sort of section of the story, not this specific arc in which all these characters met up. He wasn't part of that. All the characters met up on the Shabondi archipelago, but he was not there. He was in a later part of that same sort of section of the story, but still plays an important role. And I would argue there's definitely a few more versions of Blackbeard. I would say at least 2 more versions of Blackbeard we could have in this game. However, we should talk about the rest of the rookie pirates. We have Luffy and Zoro. I'm sure you know those already. We already have a few of those in the game, Luffy's and Zoro's. Trafalgar Law, who we have 2 versions in game, but considering the fact that him and Zoro are 2 of the most popular characters in One Piece history. Wouldn't be surprised to get more at all. And then from there, these are all new characters. These are all characters we haven't had in the game yet. Eustace Kid, Scratch Manapoo, Capone Bege, Basil Hawkins, I forgot to mention Killer, Diaz Drake, Jory Bonnie, and Uruji. All these characters have not had a version in the game yet. And they're all from different pirate crews. They're all the captains of different pirate crews, except for two characters being Zoro and Killer, who are sort of second-hand men on their respective crews. Now, as I mentioned before, all these characters happen to meet by chance at the Shep on the Archipelago, and that sort of set things into motion for the time skip, and also for the entering into the new world, the new age of One Piece. And we've got a lot of things to consider with these predictions. The first thing to consider: this event is not themed around an arc. It is not themed around a set period of time or a set place in the story. It is about a group or selection of characters from the series. But because there's no real set time frame, set arc, anything like that for these characters, there is definitely an argument that this could be any version of these characters that appears from the point at which we acknowledge they are supernovas or part of the worst generation up until, well, where we are in the story now, pretty much. Any point after that, I would say, is fair game. So, I argue that this is going to be a bit of a mashup event, just like the One Piece Feature Festival we had last year. Not quite the same as the One Piece event we had earlier this year. We had a little One Piece event in around New Year's time to celebrate hitting 1,000 chapters of One Piece. Not quite the same as that, because that was themed around Impel Down and Marineford. But the one we had last year, it was themed around a few different arcs that were completely disjointed from one another from vastly different points in the story. And it also put a bunch of villains in the gacha, and the villains were supposed to be fighting against the good guys in the free-to-play, which was quite nice. I think it was a really good way to do that event, but they weren't quite consistent with it because at the end there, they did in fact make Kazuki Oden a limited, which some people would say, well, hang on a minute, everyone else was a villain except him. What's going on there? We have our theories about that. We do have our theories about that. I mean, I won't delve into it too much today, but I have a feeling there was another character that was supposed to be there, and then Kazuki Oden was put in because they wanted to milk Kazuki Oden. That was about it. And that's a bit of a weird point, because I'm not gonna talk too much about the very latest point in the story, Onigashima, simply because it's major spoilers. The anime is like just about to start that part. So I don't really want to spoil it too much. And that's sort of something the devs have said. Like, they don't really want to spoil the anime watcher's experience too much. And I appreciate that. It's bollocks, but I appreciate that. And what I mean when I say that is, maybe that plays a part in, say, for example, a series like Chainsaw Man. Maybe they chose not to add Chainsaw Man into the game because they felt like an anime adaptation is coming up soon. We don't want to be spoiling what's happening in that anime adaptation before it comes out, because it might ruin the hype for some people. They might be looking forward to that anime adaptation and not want to be pulling characters and seeing parts of the story in Jumputi before the anime comes out, because it might spoil certain parts. Hey, if that's the case, fair enough. That doesn't really explain why they've basically spoiled the entire plot of Kimetsu no Yaiba. Doesn't really explain why they spoiled major parts of My Hero Academia before they happened in the anime. It might explain why My Hero Academia is one of the more popular arcs, and an arc a lot of people have been anticipating, that hasn't been adapted to the anime yet. Might explain why they haven't touched on that yet. Could be something that explains that. I don't know. And it could just be a case of, you know, the changing of hands between the old producer and the new producer. They still had some content finished from the old producer, and that led to like a bit of not disagreement, but like what the new stuff looked like and the direction they were going in with the new stuff. didn't necessarily follow the suit of the old stuff. So they're getting the old stuff out of the way, and then when they're moving forward with the new stuff, maybe they won't do that anymore. I don't know. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to talk too much about Onigashima, because I think there's a lot of things I could say. There's a lot of characters that I would really, really want, or versions of characters that I would really want from Onigashima. And one in particular I know a lot of people want, myself included. But I think for today, we will avoid that section of the story altogether. So, anything, I would say, from Shabondi Archipelago up until just before we enter Onigashima in the Wano arc. There's a lot of story there, and a lot of these characters do show up in those parts of the story. So, the next question we have to ask ourselves, will we actually be getting 12 units? Because there are 12 characters in the Worst Generation. Are we just going to get 12 characters, one version of each of these characters? I think the answer is no. Personally, even though it's One Piece, and I know they like to give a bit of favoritism to One Piece, I get it. I feel like 12 is a number that's sort of reserved for major milestone events nowadays. And we're just coming out of an event that had 12 characters. One of those characters isn't even out yet. That's how jam-packed this event was. So I don't think they're going to do that again. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll surprise me. I don't know. But I can't see it. I personally, I can't see it. I would say probably 10 is a better number, but we'll see. As for the characters, I'm going to put on the screen now, hopefully, each of the characters' positions in the World 100 popularity poll. There was a popularity poll just this year, and it was the first global popularity poll where they took results from all around the world. So this gives us a set idea of the popularity of each of these characters and whether they would be considered for the event and what role they could potentially be considered for in this event. Some of the ones that will pop out to you straight away, Luffy number 1. It's not a surprise, but also if he's number 1, not only does that explain how many versions of him we've had before, it might suggest that another version of him could well be on the way. Zoro number 2 will not be a surprise to most people, and you know, he is a very popular character. He doesn't have a limited yet. He does have a limited on the Taiwan server. That is sort of a mashup version of Zoro, but it's a time skip version of Zoro specifically, and it is his special attack from the fight against Pika in Dressrosa. So I think that is a version of Zoro that people might want, but that's not the one we're going to be getting this time around. And I do actually have a theory about that Zoro. I have a feeling that Zoro might be slightly altered when he comes to the JP server, to put his headband back on and take his shirt off. Or maybe not even that, maybe just leave him as he is. But he might well be replacing the standard Gacha Zoro we already have when he comes to JP. Maybe not. Maybe not. But just a thought. Just something to consider. Trafalgar Law, rank 5 in the world. And we have 2 versions of Law already, an event unit and a gacha unit. He is very much limited worthy. And I would say the 2 versions we have, Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, we're still kind of missing a couple of key versions of him. So definitely limited worthy. Same as Zoro, definitely limited worthy. And there's also the potential for a dual unit with him, which I think gives him an even better chance of being a limited during this event. But very good, very good. Kid, who is the most popular character who is not in the game yet, and rank 23 is not too bad considering his role in the story has been not as solidified as the characters above him. You know, Luffy, Zoro, Law have had major roles to play. Kid has had a role to play, but it hasn't been as consistent as maybe Law or Zoro. And he hasn't been added to the game yet. Not a single version of the character. And I don't know. I think he is potentially limited worthy, But I think when you consider the fact that Zoro and Law do not have limited yet, and that this would be the first version of Eustace Kid, I'm kind of inclined to say he won't be limited. And if he does get added, probably standard gacha. Diaz Drake, 41 in the world, surprisingly popular. There is an element of recency bias. Characters that show up in the story more recently are probably going to rank higher than characters that we haven't seen in a long time. And, you know, Drake's had a role to play, so it makes sense. He's actually a lot more popular than I thought he was going to be. I really feel like he's not limited worthy, though. Like, if he's going to be in this event, probably standard gacha. Blackbeard, rank 46 in the world. Not a big fan of Blackbeard. I know other people are, and I mean, clearly rank 46 is pretty high. I think he's had quite a big role in the story, and to only be 46 is actually a little bit of a surprise. But maybe there's another group of people out there that aren't a big fan of him, just like myself. And yeah, I think we've got a few different potential versions of Blackbeard. I think he definitely has the potential to be a limited. Would we get a Dark Heroes limited during this event? Maybe. I don't know. Who would he fight against? I don't know. It's a bit tricky. I think there's definitely an argument for Blackbeard to counter an event that drops like Jewelry Bonnie, because they had there was like a little thing with them in the post-time skip, or maybe a farmable ace. That would be cool. But right now, I'm not too sure. But definitely a possibility for him to be a limited if he is in this event. But I don't know. I don't know. Killer, rank 55 in the World Popular 100. Popular 100? The World 100. And Killer is quite popular, considering he's not a captain. Considering his role in the series has been quite limited up until recently. Pretty happy to see him that high up in the ranks, and you know what? Very possibly standard gacha worthy. I would say he's probably standard gacha worthy. There is a chance he might get relegated to an event if Kid got made into a standard gacha, and I think actually he's probably going to be an event, but we'll talk about that when we get to the actual predictions. But he was standard gacha worthy for sure. He was standard gacha worthy for sure. Uruji, rank 70. He hasn't really done that much in the story, but his rank's actually quite high. But I think if he's appearing, he'll be gacha or event. He won't be limited for sure. Personally, I don't really see him as gacha either. And I don't even know how you'd like maybe a legend summon. Like, he hasn't done that much in the story, so I don't know. Basil Hawkins, shamefully low in the story for the role, in the ranks for the role he's had in the story, rank 82. He's sandwiched between two characters that haven't really done that much in the story, and he's had actually like a recent role in the story. He's part of the group that's appeared again in Wano, along with like Law and Drake and Killer and Scratchman and Kid and Luffy and Zoro, and he is one of the lowest out of all of them. And I thought he was more popular. I mean, he got a legend along with Kid in One Piece Treasure Cruise last year. Pretty cool. Was that last year or was the year before? Time flies. Time flies. But you know, that was pretty cool. I thought maybe he could be something special here, but I think realistically, I wouldn't even make him gacha. I would just make him an event. And I think from this point on, pretty much everybody, if they're getting in, is an event. Bonnie would probably be an event. I would say the only thing that gives Bonnie a chance of being standard gacha is the devs sort of... there's a word for it, but I don't really know the word for it. The same reason that Taya, or Anzu, got made into a gacha, despite her role in the story, in the Yu-Gi-Oh event, despite there definitely being better candidates, especially from that arc, and despite the fact that they just had to smash together a bunch of versions of her from like the anime and like not even from the manga, like, you know, they took some liberties in order to make her gacha. I could see them taking some liberties to make Bonnie gacha, but I don't think they will. I don't think they will. I think if she does appear, she will be in an event. Bege, honestly, Capone Bege's rank is so horrifically low. 158, considering he had a major role in the Whole Cake Island arc. That's appalling from him. So if he's appearing, he's probably gacha. I would argue that he could play a role in a different event. But again, we will talk about that later. And then Scratch Manapoo, rank 169 in the world. And honestly, he is so unpopular. Even recency bias couldn't give him any votes here. 169, that's crazy low. And yeah, again, if he's in the event, he's just like an event character. He's not a gacha for sure. So let's talk about how I would lay out this event. It's a little bit different from how I've been wording it so far, and I mean, those that have seen it in Discord will know that. I already kind of don't back these predictions too much. I've already seen at least one thing that kind of makes me think I've got it wrong, but I've got at least one thing right, and I have to stand by it. Predictions are predictions, so you just got to stand by them. You can't change them when you see something else. You got to stand by them until you know for sure. So here we go. I think we're going to get 10 units and a legend summon, which I think is fair for a One Piece event. It might be a little bit on the big side. I think maybe 8 units is more realistic. But I'm going to say 10 units because it's One Piece. And a legend summon because it's One Piece. The first limited, Roronoa Zoro from Wano, or Zoro Judo from Wano. And yeah, he's already been confirmed. This is the one we got right. He's already been confirmed. I said he'd be a limited and he was. So hats off to me. Let's go. He was deserving of being a limited, and the reason I predicted it would be the Wano Zoro rather than the one we already have on the Taiwan server is because I have a feeling they just don't want to do that anymore. Make the Taiwan limiteds into just straight up limiteds on the JP server. Like, they might do it with certain characters, like if we get Casey and Minato, they might well do it with him, but I have a feeling that was received very poorly when we got the New World event last year, and I just don't think they want to do that again, which it's understandable. It's definitely understandable. So that might be the case. I could be speculating quite a lot there, but I looked at it and I said, I just can't see them doing that Zoro, personally. So I think also part of my justification for this was they would want to find a way to, if they're doing a worst generation event, that they would want to find a way to fit as many of the worst generation into the event. And Zoro that fights Pika only adds one version of a worst generation character to the event, but Zoro from Wano, he has a specific fight against Killer, or Kamazo, Killer. So it makes a lot more sense to add this version of Zoro and then make Killer into a Catastrophe class stage, and we can get that version of Killer, and then you've got 2 characters from the worst generation instead of just 1. Makes sense, no? Makes sense? Okay, good. So the second limited I've gone with is the Wano version of Trafalgar Law. You may be seeing a pattern here. The Wano version of Trafalgar Law I chose for the same reason as Zoro. Super popular character, doesn't have a limited yet, already has a standard gacha and an event version, and finally, by putting him as a limited, you can put him up against another of the worst generation, and I have chosen Basil Hawkins. Maybe not the strongest pick there, but I think Basil Hawkins actually works quite well as a Catastrophe class, and I think he'd look really cool with an aura, so why not? Why not? This does, of course, mean that certain characters have been demoted to gacha, and I do still kind of think the Law could have been a dual unit with Luffy, just to say fuck it, but we've already had a special stage for Dofi, so I don't know if they would do that unless they do Luffy and Law against someone else at some point in the story. And you could definitely make an argument for them somehow trying to fit in like a farmable Kaido or something. Like, there's options here. There's definitely options here. But for me, personally, I just like the idea of a limited lore. I think that's a big draw. I don't think I would summon for either Zoro or lore, even though I'm quite a big fan of both. But I think a lot of people would. I think this would be like huge summons, huge amounts of rubies, and huge amounts of sales. So that's what I think they would do. And I don't know if people would agree that Basil Hawkins is like the best pick for a Catastrophe stage, but I think it works. I think it would look cool, at least. I think him and Killer as the Catastrophe class stages would look really cool. So there's that. Now, with the rest of the event, this is kind of the part of which I would say I've strayed away from the predictions I made. There are certain things I would definitely do differently looking back now, but we're going to stick by these predictions, of course, and I'll talk about these in a sec. But the reason I've strayed away from these is because when they announced Zoro, they put the retweet campaign up in the morning, and the retweet campaign told us we'd get log poses for every 1,000 retweets we got, and for every 5,000 retweets we got, we would get new world tickets. That, to me, suggested that we would get basically the latest version of each of the characters. So in my predictions, I've put Eustace Kid, Jory Bonnie, and Diaz Drake, all of them as the Shabondi versions in the standard gacha. I don't think they're going to do that. I think we should get that version of Kid, and I think we should, you know, maybe get the version of Lore from that part of the story at some point. But I've really started to second guess myself. These are my predictions, but if you wanted to make some predictions of your own, maybe just a little tip. I don't think they're going to stick to the theme super rigidly, and I think maybe we're going to get some event characters and stuff that aren't from the worst generation. But the big hitters of the event will probably be from the worst generation. I think that's how they're going to do it. And my predictions didn't include a Luffy, which is kind of weird, because they definitely could have a Luffy. But I put Kid, Bonnie, and Drake in the gacha, as I said, countering events for Uragi, Transcendent Class Uragi, Transcendent Class Scratchman, and a points event Blackbeard. I don't think that was a strong pick from me, but my issue was I kind of was thinking, how would you fit Blackbeard into this event? Because you can't have another gacha. Yes, you could. A standard gacha Blackbeard is kind of strange, but it could work. But it would be weird to have another, like, Blackbeard that's just farmable, just a standard farmable. Not that they haven't done stuff like that before. Like, say, for example, Kokushibo, they just released a Catastrophe and then they released another points event farmable Kokushibo. And that's kind of what I was thinking of when I came up with this. But, I mean, maybe. We'll see. I did also say this isn't really tied to any characters, but I think we'll have a missions event where we try to increase our own bounty, and then when our bounty is over 100 million, then we will be supernovas and we will earn luxury rewards. I did wonder if that was maybe something they would do, because they like those kind of little cheeky little things, like you level up your rank in the world in game. And they could totally do that again. And for the Legend Summon, I put the Dark King Rayleigh because it kind of makes sense. He plays a big role at Shabondi, so why not? I dropped Capone from this event. And the reason I did that was simply because I felt that we still have to get Sanji and Pudding and Sulong Carrot from the Whole Cake Island arc. Those versions of those characters from the Taiwan server are just sitting there waiting to be released. So it's very possible, at least it was in my head, that at some point we could get like a mini Whole Cake Island event, or it could be tacked on somewhere to another event. And in that, we might get Capone. Could happen, you don't know. As for Luffy, yeah, I don't know. I think the chances of us getting a new Luffy are probably quite high, but we did get a new Luffy during the last feature festival, so maybe we won't get a new Luffy. Oh wait, did we get? Well, no, we did get a new Luffy, didn't we? We got the we got the Wano version of Luffy. Maybe we'll get another Luffy. I don't know. But that's it. That's my thoughts. We'll get another teaser tonight, so who's it going to be? Are we going to get a teaser on the new Trafalgar Law? If we do, am I the prediction king? I don't know. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I guess we'll know how wrong the rest of my predictions will be very, very soon. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.